fi hear me voice on the radio. Ghana, you know, say me rate you. Come and see you know me, I wait you. Red, green, and gold. Put it.
Is it okay? Is the projector okay?
my money, make my money ready, ready, ready. I will be coming for it. Yo, gang.
I'm checking on you, Dada. If God has answered my prayer, you said you're gonna think about it. Me never had nothing yet, my king. Dada, please try for me.
Gang, can you also try for me?
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Yeah.
How can you pass the airport and reach there?
Me try swerve the traffic.
Ice chest, you get t-shirt. Yellow liam, without high table.
You dark.
Yes, we welcome you all to Musical Hall for the 3rd National Cannabis Conference. Our audience at home and those of us gathered here, we say 420. 420. Yes, under the auspices of the Advocacy Committee of the Rastafari Council of Ghana, we've held annually the 420 National Cannabis Conference with the intent to educate the public about cannabis and to inform policymakers about the benefits of cannabis so as to help also to demystify the misconceptions that a lot of people have about cannabis. The Advocacy Committee has as one of its objectives to promote the decriminalization and or legalization of cannabis and to release persons incarcerated for cannabis, and to promote and to advocate for the release of persons incarcerated for cannabis. And so we use such platform. Today, April 20th, the world over is celebrating various activities and holding several events to mark this day. And the Rastafari Council of Ghana, under its committee, the Advocacy Committee, we've gathered you all for this all-important 3rd National Cannabis Conference. This conference will be held under the theme, Ghana Beyond Aid, the Cannabis Factor. According to our esteemed former president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, aid to a new colonial government is like a revolving credit that comes from the colonizer and goes to the colonial nation to return back to the colonizer as increased profits. And so, Rastafari, bearing in mind we do not want to increase profits for our colonizers, we support the president's vision of a Ghana Beyond Aid, which started at the birth of Ghana's independence. And so we are looking at how cannabis can contribute to this Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. As we know that there is a one district, one factory program, and bearing in mind cannabis has over 1,000 uses, we are hoping that the government will see the need to include the cannabis in its conversation. With that being said, I'll hereby invite the president of the Rastafari Council of Ghana, who doubles as the chairman of the Rastafari Continental Council, to give us a welcome address for the 3rd National Cannabis Conference. So ladies and gentlemen, Rastafari at home and abroad, watching us over the internet, I will ask that, and our participants here, with a warm round of applause, let's welcome our president as he delivers his welcome address.
Give thanks to Royal Moses Kofi Asante, the administrator of the Rastafari Council Ghana, and the moderator for today's conference. Somebody said that when you're doing things in Ghana and you don't start with due to circumstances beyond our control, and apologies for the late start, then the thing is not in Ghana. I sincerely look forward to a time in R&I lives when those things will be a thing of the past. Having said that, I'd like to salute everybody watching today's conference and participating wherever you are. Earlier on, I saw some greetings from Zambia and some greetings from South Africa. Later today, we'll be joined with presentations from Sister Cheryl, a cannabis lawyer in Florida, and we'll have another presentation from Ras Dimos, the first Jamaican to get a license as a cannabis entrepreneur running a dispensary in Jamaica. He'll be sharing his experiences with us. We'll also have another presentation from Godfred Abuaji, a Ghanaian who is a member of the global community doing business in the cannabis space. Let me start off with compliments to the 7th Parliament of Ghana for passing the Narcotics Commission Act last year on the 20th of March. And that single event signaled Ghana's entry into the global marijuana space. And we're looking for the current parliament, which is the 8th parliament, to go one step further and ensure that Ghana as a country enters into the global cannabis market. As a matter of fact, such a step will give impetus to the desire by His Excellency President Nana Akufo-Addo to see a Ghana beyond aid. And that essence is captured in our theme for today, Ghana Beyond Aid, the Cannabis Factor. Like our moderator alluded to at the start of the program, great Pan-Africanists like Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah deeply abhor the idea of aid for a continent that's so richly endowed with resources. It is an anathema for one to even consider going cap in hand to the so-called developed nations of this world begging for aid. And we're strongly of the view that the green gold economy has major benefits which Ghana can get. If you look at the industrial area, what cannabis can do. If you look at the medicinal area, what cannabis can do. Of late, President Joe Biden, when he was campaigning to be the leader of the United States, said that he would ensure that recreational cannabis is legalized. And all these offer ideas as to how Ghana as a nation can benefit from this green gold. And as we mark International Cannabis Day with the 3rd National Cannabis Conference, the speakers will be presenting reasons why Ghana as a nation have to enter the cannabis market. Now, our work as a council involves advocacy, and the chairman of the Advocacy Commission will speak a bit about what we've been doing in terms of advocating for cannabis. Our work also goes beyond just cannabis. Of late, we've been in the news advocating for the rights of our children to go to school with dreadlocks. And I believe that through engaging with the public through media, we can be able to come to a realization that yes, indeed, it's important for Ghana as a nation to reconsider our laws on cannabis and position ourselves to benefit from that. On that note, I want to welcome you all to today's program, the 3rd National Cannabis Conference, under the theme, Ghana Beyond Aid, the Cannabis Factor, and I declare the conference duly open. Thank you.
Yes, he deserves a thunderous applause. $420. Yes, $420.
Cannabis education.
Yes, today is a day, like I said previously, cannabis lovers, cannabis educators, cannabis researchers, everybody who has anything to do with the cannabis plant is enacting one activity or the other to commemorate this day. And so we applaud all our gallant members of the general public and the Rastafari community who have joined us here at the Musical Hall for the 3rd National Cannabis Conference. We hereby take a statement from the chairman of the Advocacy Committee, Kirk Spongo. Please, let's welcome him with applause.
Well, we give thanks for this, historical event again taking place in Ghana. And this is our 3rd time we are keeping the Cannabis Conference in Ghana. But before then, the advocacy has started long ago, individually, and then eventually, we all join as a team with other coalition bodies. We sent some petitions to Parliament, and then eventually some lobbying, and then the first part of the battle was won. That is or has been won. That is about 1 year ago, 1 year, 1 month today, when the Parliament of Ghana has passed the bill, for cannabis to be legalized. The next step is to make sure that Ghanaians understand that when we're talking about hemp is a plant that is used for industrial purposes and then let's say biomass and a little bit of medicinal aspect. But when you really want the medicine from the cannabis plant, you get it from the marijuana. That is the medicinal aspect. So if Ghana wants to make money and become one of the beneficiaries of this boom, this gold rush now, because it will not be like that forever. So we need to stand up now and wake up now and stop, using opinions instead of facts, to make sure that the plant completely is decriminalized or legalized, so that I will even start from the decriminalization, you know. So that is the thing I want Ghanaians to know. Today I happened to be watching TV and I saw a parliamentarian, or I heard a parliamentarian saying that he's not in agreement with cannabis being legalized or marijuana being legalized because people will smoke it. You know, we are not talking about only the smokable aspect, which is also happening already, whether the law is in existence or not, it is happening. But I think the government of Ghana and Ghanaians can reap a lot of money out of even the local markets of users who are already using it. It's not that they are coming to start to use it now. It is something they are using already. So, briefly, not to talk too much, Ghanaians should understand that we are losing money, and these are a lot of taxes that is being imposed on us. If you say the cannabis is decriminalized or it is given a legal regulation, it will not be suffering all this suffering, you know, and a lot of health issues too that we are facing now would have been a thing of the past. Give thanks.
Yes. A round of applause. 420. 420. So we are about starting the main event by going to our first speaker of the day, Ras Demos. So 420. 420. Ras Demos is a Rastafari entrepreneur, community development strategist, and owner of the Epican Corporation in Jamaica. As a note of reference, Epican Corporation was the first recipient of a ganja dispensary license in Jamaica. Ras Demos is ready and will be giving his presentation on Ghana Beyond Aid, the cannabis factor. So he's been alerted and he is getting ready to make his presentation. As our technicians are doing all that is required to get him on board. Whilst we are waiting, we would like to remind you that the Advocacy Committee of the Rastafari Council of Ghana engages consistently in activities to decriminalize cannabis here in Ghana. And the other reason is also to ensure that persons who have been incarcerated for cannabis are released. This is because we appreciate as Advocacy Committee that cannabis has been reviewed per international policies. Once upon a time there was a war on drugs, and the war on drugs led to a war on people. The war on drug was pillared on the understanding that cannabis was a dangerous drug. Today, researchers have educated us to appreciate that cannabis has therapeutic values. And it eases pain, it has health benefits to aid a lot of diseases. For this reason, policymakers are taking a relook at cannabis and hence are enacting policies to decriminalize cannabis. We are aware in the United States of America, one country where Ghana mostly borrows from, they are been able to decriminalize cannabis in most of their states. To this end, they are raking in huge dollars, huge economic benefits from this cannabis economy. Unfortunately, Ghana, that is very known for borrowing, that is dependent on institutions like the IMF and World Bank to aid our national budgets. With an arable land, one will anticipate that Ghana will take a key interest in cannabis cultivation. Unfortunately, in our country, that has not been the case. We continue to uphold colonial laws that prevents us from engaging fully in the cannabis trade and to benefit from the cannabis industry. And so it is necessary as the Ghanaian public to educate ourselves about the useful benefits of cannabis, how it can boost our economy as the government advocates for a one district, one factory policy. We are all aware that these clothes that we are wearing can be made from cannabis. So with a policy that targets producing clothes for Ghanaians, producing clothes, uniforms for our military, our police, our doctors, our students, and what have you, we've been notified Ras Demos is ready. Yes, Sister Sherry instead is ready for her presentation. And Sister Cheryl Mura Powell Eska is an agricultural cannabis and dietary supplement attorney at Doma, Oswek, Lostrom. The Daily Business Review has named her one of the top cannabis attorneys in Florida. Her practice covers both the marijuana and hemp industries, specializing in cannabinoid legalization and UK novel foods registration. Cheryl serves on the board of one of the oldest cannabis advocacy organizations, Patients Out of Time. She is the former executive director of the Black Farmers and Agriculturalists of Florida and former director of federal affairs for the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Cheryl also serves as the director of business development of CannabisZake.com, an incubator, accelerator, and co-working community catering solely to cannabis-related businesses. She leads the ESTM D37 Cannabis Committee work groups on the annual Global Workshop on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Cheryl is on the Hemp Pilot Program Advisory Board for the University of Florida and serves on the Broward County, Florida Medical Marijuana Advisory Board. 420, Cannabis Education. We can see that our next speaker is very much endowed as a cannabis advocate. She is on the board for the Friends of Hemp and was a founding board member for the U.S. Hemp Builders Association. She is also president of consulting firm Green Sustainable Strong, LLC. In her spare time, she volunteers with the Winrock Foundation, delivering marketing training to farmers in Ghana and Africa. Ladies and gentlemen at home and abroad, I invite you all with a thunderous applause to welcome our next speaker, Empress Cheryl.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Give thanks. So, you already heard my credentials. I'm very passionate about the cannabis plant. I say cannabis is where I live, work, and play. So I want to say greetings to my people of Ghana, greetings to my people from other parts of the motherland, Mother Africa, and greetings to those of you who are in the diaspora. I look at cannabis as a civil rights issue. I look at access to cannabis or ganja as a criminal justice reform issue. And I look at cannabis and ganja as a health care reform issue. So this affects so many different people, and that's why I do the work that I do around the world, engaging and helping communities move forward with their governments as far as legalizing the plant. In my discussion today, we'll talk about the why, as far as why we need to legalize cannabis. I will also speak about Rastafari and the connection with ganja. And I will also speak about best practices. So that's the flow of our discussion today. I think it's appropriate that we start with a quote from His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie I, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of Judah, elect of God. And he said, those that have fallen on the battlefield have sacrificed themselves so that our future would be more secure. And we, the living, have the responsibility of living up to the sacrifice that they have made. And when we look at the history of ganja, the history of cannabis, it's a history of sacrifice. It's a history of persecution. It's a history of prosecution and abuse. So with that, we need to remember and recognize those that have fallen and pick up the mantle and carry forward, because this is a criminal justice reform issue. It's a healthcare issue. It's a civil rights issue. With that said, I'm going to make sure that everyone can follow with the flow, because one thing I know we all love is reggae music. So when you look at reggae music and how critical it has been to the spread of Rastafari, I think it's analogous to ganja and the spread of Rastafari. And when I say the spread of Rastafari, I'm talking about that peace and love mentality, the one love mindset. So it's with urgency that we need to legalize ganja, because just like reggae music, we can see the spread of those positive vibes through the ganja plant. So with that said, when we look at reggae music, when we look at like a Bob Marley, which would be our most famous, popular reggae singer, who is known around the world, and his songs make people peaceful and to do more. When we think of that history, we shouldn't forget that in order to get reggae music to the world, it had to go through Babylon's system. Reggae music to get to the world has to go through Babylon's system. And ganja is not different. It's not different. So for reggae music, a lot of times we have to go into Babylon's recording studios, Babylon record shops, Babylon radio stations. But the ultimate goal is to get it out to the world. Now, with the ganja industry, we aspire towards sacramental use being legalized around the world for Rastafari, for the Maroon community, and other communities that use ganja sacramentally. I believe we will get there. But as we are talking about, our theme for today is about cannabis education. And it's not just about educating the people, it's about educating the regulators, the lawmakers. So in the current construct, ganja is going through the Babylon system. We have a legal framework that's set up in different jurisdictions around the world. And it feels as if these systems are exclusionary to Rastafari, to sacramental users. But just like we have seen success in reggae music going through the Babylon system to get out to the world and bringing peace and love, one love mentality, one love mindset, we will see the same with ganja being free. So it is a glorious, joyful day that we can come together as one community and talk about how we liberate the plants, how we liberate ganja. So when we talk about Rastafari and repatriation, I would be remiss if I spoke to an African audience without talking about repatriation as someone in the diaspora with strong bonds and connections and love to Africa. But for repatriation, which for those of you that don't know, it's those of us in the diaspora returning to Africa to contribute and eliminating that pause that represents the international enslavement of people. So when you talk about repatriation, there needs to be preparation. And in reality, we have to think about the fact that we can't ask our brothers and sisters from outside of the African continent to repatriate until those of us who can do what we need to do about legalization. Because if you're using ganja sacramentally, if you're using ganja for your health and wellness, and you repatriate, you don't want to repatriate and be re-enslaved or incarcerated and bring your entire family to the motherland, to Africa, and then you risk your freedom where they have to fend for themselves in their original homeland, but still a foreign land. So I am saying that to encourage you to be steadfast in our journey to move forward with legalization for medicinal purposes, for meditational purposes, and for sacramental purposes, because that represents freedom. Around the world, a marijuana, ganja, cannabis charge is the entry point to the criminal justice system. It's the entry point to re-enslavement. So we need to have decriminalization efforts. So with that, I'm going to talk you through the stages of legalization, which you'll typically see in a market. And I want to especially recognize, my home, Jamaica, where my people are from, for being the first country in modern times to recognize sacramental use. And in Jamaica, while they have the legalization infrastructure that goes through the Cannabis Licensing Authority, and Ross Demas will probably go into more detail around that, you have the sacramental approach, the sacramental use, which goes through the Ministry of Justice. So it's a separate and apart system, but it's a recognized system. And then Jamaica led the way, but many will follow. And we're already seeing some advancements in countries. So the stages of legalization. First, you start with decriminalization. Decriminalization is critical because if you don't have a decriminalized environment, you're criminalizing patients. You're criminalizing people who need this for their overall health and wellness. There are enough studies on PubMed and research being done in Israel and all around the world that show that this plant has medicinal use and is not harmful. So we're no longer in the posture where we're disputing, is this harmful? We understand that it is not for kids, and we've never marketed to children and adolescents. We have been self-regulated for many years before legalization, and we've always been responsible with the plant, and we will continue to do so. So you go from a decriminalized market into a medicinal market. A medicinal market usually requires some type of recommendation from a doctor. So we call it a recommendation, not a prescription, because prescriptions are for pharmaceutical products that go through, in the United States, the FDA, in Ghana, also called the FDA, and that's where prescriptions would go through. So that's why we say recommendation. So the physician will recommend ganja, cannabis for treatment. And then you have a dispensary space that's being set up so that you can go and choose what products based on your physician's recommendations, which will help you with your chronic condition or your ailment. Every jurisdiction will have a different list of chronic conditions that would be eligible for the use of ganja. So from a medical perspective, you go into a Sometimes people call it recreational, others call it adult use. But you go into a space where you don't need to see the physician. You are able to go and purchase from a dispensary. So why would you want to do that? Why would you want to open up to the point where you're in an adult use market? Well, people have the right to privacy. When you have a medicinal market, the patients have to be listed on the registry. When you move to an adult use market, you can be anonymous and not be on this list. And that's really why we encourage jurisdictions to go from medical into adult use. Because it's not about people getting high. It's about feeding the endocannabinoid system that you have in your body, that every bird, fish, mammal has in their body, that directly relates to the plant. You have receptors that directly mirror and relate to the plant for your overall health and wellness. And when you're in not in a legalized market and can't access the plant, you are in a deficit for those endocannabinoids. And when you're in a deficit for endocannabinoids, you'll see an increase in sickness and illness. A lot of times you hear, older people say, or elders, I should say, they'll say, in my time, we didn't have all this sickness, illness, disease. It's incrementally, exponentially getting worse because we're not feeding our endocannabinoid system. And again, with that, taking that into consideration, don't think that cannabis means high. There are over 130 cannabinoids, hundreds and hundreds of compounds, flavonoids, other particles in the plant that are good for the human condition. And fortunately, governments are finally allowing their universities to really study and understand these components and how they work together in unison. And that's what we call the entourage effect. So the plant in all its parts work in unity to relieve illness, to help give overall wellness. And that's how we have to work in unity to move this forward around the world. So when you have a legal infrastructure, there are different license types. Some states, like my own state, there's only one license type that allows you to do pretty much everything. But it's expensive. It's expensive, over $60,000 just to apply, non-refundable, not to mention all your legal fees and technical writer fees and putting your team together and renting properties and things like that. So it eliminates the access for regular people to participate in the industry. That's not equitable. There are some markets where you'll have cultivation licenses separate, you'll have processing licenses separate, manufacturing licenses separate, you'll have dispensing licensing separate, transportation licensing separate, infusion licenses separate, research licenses separate. So you can see when you have a horizontal market where you have all these different affordable license types, it allows for greater participation, greater innovation, greater creativity. So that's a key best practice, is to make sure that you don't have just a vertical integrated structure where only certain people win and get to participate because they have the money. And you allow, if someone has been a courier or they have been driving a truck or taxi and they want to also add to their repertoire the ability to transport cannabis, it makes sense. They've been driving for a living. Why would you keep them from driving this plant? Give them that transportation license. That person may not have any interest in growing ganja. They may not want to cultivate. They may not want to process. Allow people to get in where they fit in and participate. So now we're going to talk about components of good legislation as you're legalizing. Well, we just kind of spoke about one of it, which is a horizontal structure where there are different types of licenses. That's a key one. The next piece is really looking at social equity, social justice, social responsibility. Social equity is just what I spoke about as far as making sure that everyone can participate. It's affordable for people to join in, that the people who were penalized and criminalized, like the Rastafari community, has an opportunity to participate in this now legal market. When you talk about social justice, it's saying let people out of jail, expunge their records, give amnesty for the people who were victims of the war on drugs. That's what social justice is all about. And that's the ball we need to start moving. We should not have our Black and brown bodies in cages for something that people are allowed to do legally right now. It's not right. It should shock the conscience that we're still in that posture. And finally, we have social responsibility. Our communities have need. Our communities have need. And ganja production can create so many economic opportunities, jobs. All the license holders should be mandated to give back to our communities and give to the communities and give to education and give to programs. That's what social responsibility is all about. So we advocate for social justice, social equity, social responsibility in every piece of ganja legislation, cannabis legislation. We briefly talked about amnesty. Amnesty ties into the equity piece where, people who are incarcerated and they may have criminal records when you're doing your background checks or criminal records related to marijuana, related to ganja. When you do your background checks, you give them amnesty because they were victims of the war on drugs. Okay? Sacramental use. We've talked, that's the main point of our conversation, is making sure that Rastafari, the Maroons, can use the plant as a sacrament. It is a religious, faith-based, liberty-based practice. And it's against civil rights for this to be restricted in any way. As we see, there's communion in the churches. Even when they had prohibition in the United States, there was still an exception for using wine for communion, because it is recognized that you cannot interfere with faith-based practices, and that's why sacramental use is so important. Also, to note home grow, allowing people to cultivate small amounts at home so that they can grow the strains, and I say strains loosely, it's really about plant chemistry, but the strains that relate directly to what they are trying to relieve as far as health and wellness. Reduce fees, making sure the fees are not overly burdensome for people so they can participate. And then finally is making sure that these communities are in the leadership in designing what this structure will be. So as I've been speaking, I've been making the connection between legalization and repatriation, which is an important connection. So what comes next? What comes next? Well, tomorrow we'll celebrate the anniversary of Haile Selassie visiting Jamaica and other countries. Brown Nation Day is what it's called. And when he came to Jamaica, he said that we need to organize and centralize. Organize and centralize. That's what we need to do. That's the purpose of us meeting and coming together to date. It goes for Rastafari and it goes for legalization. And when we organize and centralize, then we can make improvements to overall life. We can have the funds available to combat this COVID pandemic. We can have, from the cannabis industry, from the ganja industry, from the legal ganja industry. That's what it's about. We'll have funds that we can put into education. When His Imperial Majesty walked the earth, his focus was on innovation, creating a new era of equality. A strong focus on education, built over 2,000 schools. Empress Menen, building schools, building churches, built an international school for girls. We need to elevate our women and our girls in our communities. So that's really important. I think ganja is the answer for that. So with that said, I'm going to close out and leave you with my Grow to Ship proprietary strategy for my company, Green Sustainable Strong. My partner, Billy Reynolds, and I came up with it, and it's intended as a strategy for agricultural companies, agricultural organizations that are supporting farmers. But I think it applies in the ganja world as well. So it's an acronym. The G stands for Grow Diverse Commodities. That speaks to the ganja plant and ensuring biodiversity. Ensure biodiversity. Nobody wants to see the same strains every single place. That's why we have our researchers, and then we have our traditionalists, our indigenous people who understand the plant. R, recruit diverse individuals. We can't do this ourselves. We're going to need, experts in all fields to move forward in legalization. You're going to need your accountants. You're going to need your lawyers. You're going to need your cultivators. You're going to need your processors, your scientists, the researchers, the universities, your pharmacists, everybody. There's a place for everybody. O, outreach to like-minded organizations. That's what I see here. When I looked at the flyer, I saw collaboration. We need more of that. We need more of that. Organize and centralize. W, return to wellness. Focus on wellness. Our farmers are the gatekeepers for the wellness of our communities. And then it goes from grow to ship. So then we look at exportation and commercialization in a way that is in line with our values. So S in ship stands for sustainable practices. Right behind 420 and Groundation Day tomorrow, the next day is Earth Day. There's a reason that it goes in that line. I believe there's a divine reason why it goes in that line. 420, celebration of cannabis education. 421, Groundation Days, recognition of Haile Selassie's outreach to the diaspora, including Jamaica. 422, Earth Day, be kind to the earth. Sustainable practices, regenerative practices. H, healthy financials. This plant is a gift going back to biblical times. Use it as a gift to enhance the community, to educate the community, to bring health and wellness, and to combat this pandemic. I, innovation and technology. We have our traditional growers, and then we have people in laboratories with cannabis. There's a way to bring those worlds together. We need to understand the chemistry of the plant, but we also need to respect this is not something new. Cannabis has been medicine for centuries and centuries and centuries, but we shouldn't be afraid of the innovation and technology. And finally, the P is planting subchapters, subgroups. When you have something that works well in unity and is effective, replicate it. and plant another subchapter so that we're using the same strategies throughout our community in different strategic locations. We organize and centralize, and then we replicate. And that's the way forward for cannabis. That's the way forward for legalization. So I look forward to meeting with you all in person very soon. I know there's people here from all over the world. And that's the beautiful thing, because cannabis is a unifying plant. It is one place where everybody can come together and be in agreement and enjoy wellness and enjoy peace. In legal markets, crime goes down. In legal markets, adolescent use goes down. In legal markets, road fatalities go down. In legal markets, domestic violence goes down. Just because of the nature of the plant. Just because of the nature of the plant. So I really enjoyed this time with you. I am available for any questions that you may have. And we're going to focus on this 420 on cannabis education. Thank you so much.
Yes, we thank Empress Cheryl for that wonderful presentation. I'm sure most of us have learned a lot. Yes. She made some outstanding points. She reminded us about the fact that April 20th is 420. We'll do our cannabis education.
21st is Foundation and Brightest Last Visitor Jamaica.
Second is Earth Day, and we need to mark that day. We'll be reading comments from Facebook. We would like to remind you all that the event will be recorded and put on our RCG website, so people can have a look again at it in their convenient time. Now we'll just have a recap of Empress Cheryl's presentation. She said we should engage more expertise, we should organize and centralize efforts, we should focus on wellness, we should grow to shape by adopting sustainable practices, healthy financials, innovation, technology, and others. That was a very powerful presentation. Back to our Facebook handle. We've heard a submission from Alejandro Pera Brazila. He said he healed all the brothers and asked if you have a document to send to government for legalization here. Of course we do. He requests that we can work together for total and global legalization for Rastafari. He's living in Equator. We thank you, Brother Alejandro, for that powerful submission. Yes, he commented from Ecuador. Yes, we'll be taking other comments as and when they come through. We will be taking the next submission from Brother Demos. Brother Ras Demos is a Rastafari entrepreneur, community development strategist, and owner of the Epican Corporation in Jamaica. And Epican Corporation was the first recipient of a ganja dispensary license in Jamaica. We all know that to grow cannabis, you must acquire a license. And this brother, Ras Demos, he was one of the first person to acquire a cannabis license. So on this day, 420, I didn't hear cannabis education. 420. 420. So we are elated to have Brother Demos on the line to have some insight with us, to share a little about us, how he was able to acquire the license, the effect of decriminalization in Jamaica, but more importantly, how Ghana can achieve a Ghana Beyond AIDS status using cannabis as a cash crop.
Once again, it's greetings.
Rastafari.
I am very, very pleased to be here at this presentation. I want to first start off by acknowledging our ancestors for the journey that they have made all of these things possible for us, and to hail the mighty Jah, Rastafari, live it and reign it. I want to congratulate Ghana on what it is that you're doing now. I'm very proud to see that you're making the steps forward. Ghana without aid is really the right approach. I want to send special hails to the Sister Marie Powell for her beautiful presentation. She covered a lot of very important information. I thank her for that, and I thank her for her continuance and the work that she's doing. For the Ghana board, I want to totally congratulate you for being brave enough to take this step forward. We know it's not an easy one, but a very, very worthwhile one. So let us get into it from the Jamaican experience. We all know that this plant has been a sacred plant for many, many civilizations throughout all the walks of time. It is our champion plant. It is our symbiotic plant. This plant has more than one use in terms of our levity and our survival. And here in Jamaica, we've been advocating, as you know, from the beginning of time for this plant. And it was only a matter of time that we would get to this stage again, where we can say that, yes, we are proud to be able to be on this mission and on this journey. So I just want to thank everyone for their support, continued support. And we're hoping for a better and brighter future as things move forward. So as was stated, Epican Jamaica was the very first company to gain a legal license to cultivate cannabis in Jamaica. We are totally integrated. So not only do we have a license to grow cannabis, we also have a dispensary license to dispense the medicine. And we also have a processing lab where we make all of our extracts by a CO2 extraction process, which at this point in time is the cleanest way that you can extract from the plant, as I will go into a little bit later on. When we first started out, when we heard that Jamaica was moving towards the sacramental rites, we were very, very aware of what was going to come next, which was going to be the legalization aspect. The Rastafarian community in Jamaica has fought for a very, very long time to get through with the sacramental rites. And we were fortunate to have it granted by the government. Sorry, I don't know the exact date, but a few years ago. And the communities have been definitely engaging in it and making sure that we keep it alive and vibrant. There are a lot of disconnects that can happen when we're moving into a legal market. And from just the experience here in Jamaica, I want to share a few things with you. When it is we're moving into a legal market, it is important that the governmental bodies that are involved that will be regulating this plant are in good communication, meaning if there is a Ministry of Health, there's all of your social councils, everyone you need to make an effort to have the people who are going to be governing and making the legislations for your law going forward to have good communication. It'd be very important in the rollout, because if there's a disconnect in the hierarchy, then it's going to limit everything that you're able to do as you proceed. We started out probably about 5 years ago, trying to put Epican together and get everything in process of moving forward. What we found is in any territory, as you know, when you're trying to make, basically, it's a pioneering move. It's going to be very, very difficult and will take a lot of time, a lot of expenses, and it's not easy. But the important thing is to stay steadfast and to keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. And I say this because there will be obstacles that will be in your way plenty of times, many, many times, but you have to just keep on going. Now, when we started off a legalization process, we had no idea if it was going to actually be something that would come into play. None of the legislations were actually written at that point in time, but we took the opportunity to go ahead and put in the investment infrastructure-wise. So here in Jamaica, in order for you to gain a cannabis license, you have to have a lot of things in place. You have to have your physical place where you have all of the other requirements that the CLA asks for you, your camera systems, all of your infrastructure in place. At that point in time, you really have no idea how long it's going to take. So you're in the situation where you're taking on expenses in hopeful anticipation that something will happen in a short duration of time. Being the very first to the market at that point in time, we waited quite a few years to get through with the initial licensing. And so now things are a little bit better as the CLA, the Cannabis License Authority in Jamaica, have been more, as things goes on, they're developing and getting their systems together in place. What we find here is that there's a cry for the indigenous farmer who has been growing cannabis for many, many years. How does he engage himself in this legal market? How do the communities that are indigenous and have been advocates for cannabis for many, many years, the Rastafarian communities, the different hill communities, all of the different societies that have been surviving on cannabis for all of these years, how do they actually segue and make themselves to come into the legal space? It's a very difficult thing because as it is, even the sacramental people who have the sacramental rights, Rasta, who have the sacramental rights to grow cannabis and to use it in their worship and their everyday lifestyle, is unable to engage in the legal cannabis market. Because they're sacramental, they don't have a cannabis license. So they're unable to actually engage in the legal market. So as you can see, there are things that are very challenging going forward when we look on economical growth. The thing is this, the cannabis plant is a very, very diverse plant. And speaking of it, as the sister mentioned, that there are two different aspects to the plant. There is your wellness, your health and wellness aspect, and there is the commercial aspect. Commercial aspect meaning that if you grow hemp, from the fiber itself, there are many, many different things that you can make from it, right? There is clothing that can be made from it. There are food sources that can be made from it. There are textiles like cement, plastics, all of these things can be made from it. Even fossil fuels can be made from it. Clothing, as I mentioned, shoes, all of those things can be made from the hemp material. Even canvas, as we know it as a material, came from the cannabis plant. It was, as you see, canvas. It was the first material that was used in making materials from back in the day. So on a commercial level, there are many, many different uses for the plant. In the health and wellness issue of it now, that is where we use the part of the plant that has the THC in it. The hemp plant does not have much THC in it, which is the psychoactive part of the plant. So it has small doses of CBD, no THC. So you can extract from the hemp plant the part of the medicine called CBD, which is non-psychoactive. It has no THC in it, or a very low percentage of THC that won't cause a psychoactive effect. The part of the plant that has the THC in it now has all of these other components. CBG, CBN, all of there's so many different components that are in the plant that gives aid to our health and wealth. So when you're looking to engage, I would say that at this point in time for Ghana, you're definitely at the right place at the right time. Because of the legalization that's pushing forward, especially in America, it's allowing now for the rest of us to be able to come into this market. It is important for us to mark the angles that we can actually apply ourselves in this market, because a lot of times I find that when people think about the cannabis industry, we think about it probably solely from just having a dispensary, growing cannabis, and processing cannabis for medicine, so on and so forth. But in the support of the industry, there are many different things that we can do to support the industry. So there is soil that can be made, and you have your traditional roots and all of those things that you have there that you use in your traditional ways of growing, that you can actually make soil that is exportable to the cannabis industry all over the world that would love to have an indigenous soil from Ghana or from Jamaica that they would use to grow the cannabis plant, specifically made for the growth of that plant. There is packaging that can be done. There are nutrients in terms of organic formulas that can be made, ferments. There's testing. There's so many different other angles that you can approach the marketing that is lucrative and supportive, and is actually less legislative as well at the same time. So there are many different ways that you can be engaged in the cannabis industry. But the number one thing that we're facing right now is to educate the legislators and the community at large about the wrong way of thinking about cannabis that's been happening for all of these years. Without that, we won't be able to actually reach to the stage that we need to reach in terms of social acceptance and an overall just evolution of becoming very, very a mature society, so to speak, thinking about life from the right perspective. And a very big part of that is when you engage with the cannabis plant, it really gives you the ability to navigate your way in this life that we're living. I mean, after all, when we think about it, we are spiritual beings having a human experience on this earthical plane that we share with plant life and animal life. And plant life is, quite frankly, very responsibility for the majority of our health and wellness, and especially this plant. The cannabis plant is the buffalo of plant kingdom. And so for us here in Jamaica, we've been advocating for this for the longest time. You would believe that everyone in Jamaica is for this plant. And we do not face the same challenges that one would face, say, in different parts of the world, in Africa, so on and so forth. But believe it or not, we face the very same challenges here. We're still going through the evolutionary stage of re-educating people about the greatness of this plant, the use of this plant, and how beneficial it's been even for children with epilepsy situations who engage with the plant from the non-psychoactive aspect, the CBD oil that helps so much people in the world who suffer from seizures, especially little children. So we see where, in terms of the value of this plant socially, there's so many ways that it can be implemented in the society to bring great, great value. The question is, how do we make this evolution? And the first process that has to take place is the re-education of people. How do we get not only the legislators, but the community at large to start to rethink what it is that they were taught or heard of in the rhetoric of the plant? So that's been a very, very big part of our movement here in Jamaica. When we first realized that we were about to gain the first license, we made a strong commitment that in the representation of this plant and the ancestry, that we would do it to the most first world level that we could. We wanted to make the dispensary one of the most beautiful places that cannabis has been sold in the world. We wanted to make the experience of it a really wonderful experience for people to engage, and really the effort was to really try to get our community to feel comfortable enough to come into a space, put their name and their information down to gain a cannabis recommendation where they can now engage with this plant on a respectable level. And in that effort, hoping that, as you know, tourism is a very big part of Jamaica, that even when the tourists are coming into the country, that they can feel, that they can engage on a respectable and legal level in our Jamaican product, which is, is one of the #1 brands in the world in terms of ganja, in terms of cannabis. So we're really trying to make that brand Jamaica be very valuable. And so I'd say the same thing for you in Ghana. You're at your forefront now where you have so many different examples of what's happening in the world so far. There are a lot of problems that has occurred. A lot of mistakes have been made. But I believe that with what's happening right now, you can definitely navigate your way to a very, very prosperous and lucrative market. Ghana is from us in the Western Hemisphere, is one of the most visual places in Africa. And of course, because of the English speaking and our close association ancestrally, we're very in touch with what's happening there. So I do believe that you have a brand that you can cherish and bring into the fold, not only from a health and wellness aspect, but also from a commercial aspect with your biomass. And if you're going to be engaging in the hemp industry as well as the recreational or the medicinal cannabis industry, which is what's happening here in Jamaica, we actually have both. We have a hemp industry and there is a cannabis industry that's taking place here in Jamaica. So if you're looking at doing both, I believe with the landmass and all of the iniquities that you have there, that you are able to really make an impact in the market. And as you know, Africa is the outreach right there on the ground. There are so many different states that would love to be able to make a move in this direction. I am positive. And I'm also positive that with where you are right now, following a couple more steps and procedures will put you in a position to be leading in this movement of decriminalization and legalization of the cannabis plant. As I said, I would strongly recommend that you keep the communication with your government entities extremely open, and patience is going to be one of your best friends in going through this process. But you have to be consistent and persistent and educate yourselves. Look at the technology, look at the things that are needed, and present. When you're presenting, present well, And I believe that you're onto a very, very good start. And I want to congratulate you again, because I know it's been a very, very difficult time for us all in just trying to keep steadfast on this movement, especially now within this pandemic time. It's been very difficult for us here, just keeping up, but we give thanks to the mighty that we're able to do this. You're on the very best journey you could be on now. There's no other plant that you could be representing, or there's nothing else that you could be doing right now that is of more value than really pushing this effort forward. As the sister rightfully said, this is a recalibration of how we have been living as humanity for a very long time. This can really evolve us financially, socially, and in terms of health and wellness to a very more mature stage of living and a more natural way of living. And this is what we're all calling for now that we've seen what the other side of the fence has to offer. So because it is our sacred plant, our indigenous plant, we have the right to really defend this plant and to push this movement forward. And with that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of speaking from the Jamaican experience here, and encouraging you in Ghana. If there's anything that we can do here to collaborate, we are definitely open to collaboration or support in any form, shape, or fashion. And yes, we give our thanks and praises to the Almighty, Jah, Rastafari, Emperor Selassie, for guiding the way. We look forward to Groundation Day tomorrow. And I really feel that the Most High will bless all of the work that we're doing now. We will see most of it. I did not believe I would live to see what I'm seeing now, but this is for the ancestors and for the future, you know. So I give thanks and praises. Rastafari.
Yes, we give thanks to Rasdemos for that wonderful presentation. I trust we have all learnt enough. Very soon we'll be going to the Zoom to read some of the comments that has come up. Some of the questions will be answered by the speakers after or during the open forum session. Yes, there was a question for Empress Cheryl. What are the side effects of the use of cannabis? Solely for getting high. I believe when time is right, Empress Cheryl will come back to address that. There is also a concern shared by Bashir Karim. She says she made mention that cannabis are not for kids and they don't market it to kids. In a country like Ghana, where regulation of what our media present to the public is a problem, how do you market cannabis to the adults without the kids? I think this is a crucial question that our speakers will address during the Q&A session. We would like to remind you that the link for the recorded video will be shared on our website, www.rastafaricouncilghana.org. And so for those who didn't join in earlier, you still have the opportunity to have a second look at it and to educate yourself. Once again, we give thanks to Rasdemos for that powerful presentation. He mentioned that, yes, we can set up a dispensary to showcase the best ganja in the world. And also from the experience in cannabis, we can set up an establishment where we make recommendations to persons who are interested in cannabis. He concluded by saying we can navigate our way to prosperous and lucrative cannabis industry and urge advocacy movements like the Advocacy Committee, Rastafari Council of Ghana, and other bodies to continue steadfastly in our effort to decriminalize cannabis in Ghana. He also highlighted the difference between the hemp and cannabis industry. It seems Ghana, we have positioned ourselves to benefit from the hemp industry, but we are yet to position ourselves to benefit from the cannabis industry. Yes, he also said we should educate ourselves on technology and that we have the right to defend this plant. So we use the opportunity to encourage all advocacy groups and individuals to continue in our quest to ensure that cannabis is decriminalized and or legalized in our part of the world. Our next speaker is Godfred Abuaje. And as he makes attempts to connect with us via Zoom, I'd like to give us a brief introduction of Godfred Abuaje. Godfred has set up fully established e-commerce platform for cannabis web stores in Europe and the United States, and has over 14 years of He has over 14 years of cannabis fulfillment, global exports and imports, production, formulation and extraction, and cannabis regulatory and testing. He is a co-founder of CBD International in Massachusetts. Godfred is the co-founder of CBD International in Massachusetts, which established cannabinoidsheal.com into one of the largest CBD hemp e-commerce platforms meeting over 1 million in sales in the first year. Also, Godfred secured agreement with Diverse Biotech Incorporated to supply CBG isolate for use in phase 3 FDA trials. He has successfully procured and imported Swiss-grown CBD or hemp flower. Godfred entered into a purchase agreement with Massachusetts medical marijuana producer Netta to supply Swiss. Our speaker has sourced and supplied GMP isolates and flour to government in Europe and other big pharmaceuticals and companies such as Pharma Hemp, Slovenia, and Biosynthesis Pharma Group. Godfred Abuaje is a co-founder of CBD International, and he has entered into a procurement agreement with Alfame GmbH to supply CBD isolates for the medical industry. Also, he has successfully imported 50 kilograms of CBD isolates from Switzerland, valued at $1.6 million US. Godfred Abuaje formed a joint venture with Weeds South Africa, entered the US market with an exclusive strain reviewed as one of the best CBD strains till date, namely the CBD Electra flower. Godfred Abuaje, who is the next speaker, also has a quality controlled and oversaw export of 1,000 kilograms of US-grown hemp flowers to Switzerland. Godfred Abuaje is also an executive member of the International Cannabis Company, LLC, that develops diversified value chains in the emerging global cannabis industry, and Nantucket Cannabis Club, which is a social club exclusive to members from Nantucket. Godfred Abuaje is also a member of the Advocacy Committee, and as such, he will lead his presentation on the topic, Ghana Beyond Aid, the Cannabis Factor. Ladies and gentlemen at home and abroad, let's welcome Godfred Abuaje with a thunderous round of applause. 420. 420.
Honorable brethren, I believe that this is a very special day that we are gathered here to look at the potential and the actual problems facing an industry which has been crippled by policies which are ineffective, policies which are not well positioned to favor our peculiar condition here in Africa and in Ghana specifically. As of now, I have been listening to the presentations from Empress and our dear brother Dwayne, and I must say it's absolutely excellent. Everything they said was exactly on point, and I believe that in its entirety, they have covered all the areas which look at the current problem, which is in regards to regulation, our current problems, which is in regards to what we need to do as advocacy members in order to progress the usage of cannabis, whether if it's recreationally or medically. It's very, very important that we establish dialogue with government in order for us to take advantage of the opportunities that cannabis presents itself with. Ghana currently has tried very, very hard to put Ghana itself first before any other thing else. Ghana wants to look at its resources and say, at the end of the day, if I have gold, if I have palm oil, if I have sugar cane, if I have all these resources, I should be in a position to sustain myself. I should be in a position to go beyond aid. But this is the case where we are given opportunities such as the green gold. This is the case where we are given an opportunity to use cannabis as a means and ways to escape from several problems that we encounter as a country, specifically looking at the livelihoods of indigenous people staying in remote areas, specifically looking at medical conditions that cannabis can actually treat, specifically looking at how government can increase its GDP by eliminating the dark and gray markets that have already been in existence from a very, very long time. This is the chance for government to meet the private sector, to meet the farmers, to meet every individual from within the seed to sale channel and establish dialogue so that we can position ourselves in a better market, in a better, safer market that would eliminate all the dangers and all the stigmatization behind the use and production of cannabis and cannabis products. Today, we look at Ghana Beyond Aid. Let's take a scenario into context. Imagine Ghana, as the Napa Valley of cannabis. When we talk about Ghana, imagine Ghana to be that African country which has policies that are fair and safe, which has policies that enable investors and local homegrown farmers to set up cannabis farms and have a complete system which takes care of the entire process from seed to sale. Imagine Ghana being at the forefront when it comes to cannabis research in terms of looking at what we can use cannabis for when it comes to industrialization and looking at what we can use cannabis for when it comes to medical research. Imagine Ghana with all its beautiful conditions that would be perfect to grow hemp and cannabis in mass quantities. Being at the forefront, looking at strains, specific strains and hybrid strains, and going into, the latest tissue culture technology to bring out the best and preserve the best strains. Ghana is well positioned due to our beautiful democracy. And that is why we all together as advocates have to come together to voice out, to enable the government understand that policy making is not just for the government alone to make, but it is also for the farmer to contribute to that resource. It is also important for the scientist who sits in his office and conducts research to also bring about their technical experience and contribute to that policy. It's also important for the investor who wants to protect his investment to also contribute to this policy. So as the historically and religious bodies such as the Rastafari themselves, who have been at the forefront of legalization and the forefront of this advocacy and usage of cannabis. It is important for all of us to understand that the roles that we individually play contribute to the success of Ghana Beyond Aid. Now, looking at all the different type of products we have in this industry, from oils to isolates to resins to edibles. I mean, there are a number of uses when it comes to cannabis and in various forms. And when it comes to monolithic industrializations, like the use of cannabis for textiles or the use of cannabis for sustainable housing, the use of cannabis or biomass and biomass for producing fiber for car manufacturing or car production or automobile production. It's obvious that there is a market and there is an opportunity for this type of investment. Ghana currently has limited its cannabis production to 0.3% THC. But the problem here is that industrialization may be satisfied under this condition. For example, CBD extracts, obviously, or when it comes to CBD hemp, most of the strains, if you look at the profile, you would always see strains with above 12% CBD, above 12% CBD with a ratio of 12% CBD, and then probably less than 0.2% THC in most high CBD strains. But the truth be told, the current industry cannot just look at below 0.3% THC. It needs to be realistic and look at the entire scope of the spectrum, which involves THC, which involves CBD, and even other cannabinoids as well. If today in Ghana, the majority of cannabis usage is with adult usage, if you look at adult usage, this is where the real money is being made and the real usage is. How many people actually use oils in Ghana today? How many people actually use other CBD products in Ghana today? Our problem is unique because unlike other places in other parts of the country, in other parts of the world, where CBD oils are a premium and people buy them all the time and people have specific usages for them. In Ghana here, when you come, it's always mostly about people using cannabis as a way of recreational usage or adult usage. So how do we help this country grow if this has been the modus operandi from long before, from history, where we are always using cannabis as a way of recreational or as a way of adult usage? Are we to suppress this industry if we are looking at Ghana Beyond Aid? Or are we supposed to turn this industry into a business that the government itself can profit entirely and mostly when it comes to cannabis legalization? How do we acquire aid? How do we position Ghana Beyond Aid if we cannot come into terms into accepting the reality on the ground and putting in place policy that would help define safety measures such as cannabis testing? What are the heavy metals in there? What are the solvents in there? What are the bacterial and fungi microbial tests in there? And apart from that, what is the potency within this plant? What are the cannabinoid profiles? What are we looking at? If the government positions itself to establish such policies that ensures that all these gray and dark markets that are growing cannabis plants in unsafe or with unsafe practices, or are growing cannabis plants where they use all sorts of pesticides and other chemicals to expedite the growth. If these policies are put in place and government can take a chunk of all these individual businesses out there in these gray markets and provide licensing to them, fair licensing that won't cripple their business but would help grow their business, will help them undergo the right training and the right steps in the right direction. At the end of the day, Ghana as a whole, Ghana as the government can benefit from the taxes that they charge these individuals who have been taken away from these dark and grey markets and put into the mainstream market. Ghana Beyond Aid. It needs to start from policies like this. It needs to start from accepting the reality on the ground. that no matter what policies you try and put in place to deny adult usage or to prevent adult usage, it will still happen. People will still use cannabis for their daily activities, for their recreational activities, for their own usage, for their private usage. So why not eliminate the gray market and implement that policy that says, okay, we're going to give you guys licenses. We're going to make these licenses as easy and simple to get, but you have to undergo training. You have to undergo testing. You have to go through the necessary protocols to ensure that whatever you're giving your consumers are safe. So we hear a lot of people talking about industrialization. We hear a lot of people talking about, oh, we can grow hemp for textiles, we can grow hemp for paper, for tools, for building material, for automobile parts and body boards and dashboards and all that. Yes, it's all true. It's all true. But Ghana Beyond Aid starts right at the helm of the biggest problems we face in our country as Ghana. And we need to tackle the problems from exactly where they are. So one of the things that has come into the limelight of the general public is that we hear a lot of people talking about why cannabis is not something that we should legalize. And all this stigmatization is as a result of the lack of education and the lack of support from the government in terms of research. If we are going to be in a position as Ghana going beyond aid, we need to resource the research institutions. We need to establish public-private partnerships with individual testing labs. For me personally, I've always said that I do not see legalization of cannabis as a problem. And the reason why is because this has already been discussed in a larger community worldwide. Currently, most world economies have seen the beneficial role of cannabis and hemp, and that it plays both well in the industry and medical sector. The real pressing issue is how best to regulate and manage it. If we leave it as is and unattended to, especially in a country like Ghana where it's still developing, it will be a grey and black market in which nobody benefits. No one benefits from this market. Not the government, not the farmer, not the investor, not the legal representation, not even the religious bodies, such as the Rastafari. Nobody benefits if we leave these issues unattended to. On the other hand, proposals for cannabis programs must take into consideration the unique and unprecedented historical position in which Ghana and the entire African community of nations currently find itself. There's no precedent. There's no precedent for this position. I believe that Ghana plays a significant role to prove to other African countries that we are in the best position to turn cannabis into a greener market, cannabis into a way to solve health problems, cannabis into a way to solve the problems facing the livelihoods of farmers and other indigenous people. I also believe cannabis is a way to prove to the government that we can gain substantial growth in GDP if the right policies are put in place to tax these individuals who sell cannabis, to tax exports and imports that are coming into the country when it comes to the space of cannabis. I also want to touch briefly on other areas such as tourism and why tourism plays a very crucial role when it comes to looking at Ghana Beyond Aid. As you can see, Ghana has strong ties with the Caribbeans and the diaspora. And one of the key things that we realize is if our policies are not flexible enough, if the policies we have here are not welcoming, for the diaspora to come back home and say, oh, I feel at home. I feel like this is exactly where I should be. If these policies are not put in place to allow our fellow brothers in the diaspora and our fellow sisters in the diaspora to come back home and know that they can come and invest their resources in industries like cannabis, where when you use cannabis, you are not incarcerated in any way or in what sort. Where when you use cannabis and you abide by the laws, you are free with no restrictions at all. Why won't Ghana go beyond aid with all that attraction, with all that comfortable policies that make tourists enter our country and feel at home? Tourism plays a significant role in the growth of our country. And Ghana is no different from the Caribbeans. Ghana is no different. It's no different. It's the same Black people that left here that are there. So why do we have to end up making our laws so complicated and so strict? Why do we have to compromise solutions that would help make it possible for people in the diaspora to come into Africa, to come into Ghana and feel at home? So one of the areas that are worth looking at is tourism. Tourism is a key area, but then again is affected strongly by policy. Because if I know that I come to Ghana and just because of a single spliff, or let me say just because I'm using cannabis full spectrum oil, I could be arrested. That kills my intentions, that kills my hopes and my dreams to come back to my homeland, to come back to a place that I know my roots are tied to. So I feel strongly that tourism is also a way to drive, tourism through cannabis is also a way to drive Ghana beyond aid. It's a very, very, very big opportunity for Ghana to take advantage of. And I always say that which other better place would anybody come to get the best strains? If not Africa, if not Ghana, if not this region, which other better place? Where the soil is right, the atmosphere is perfect, the sunlight is splendid. Every opportunity presents itself right here in this country for us to have some of the best strains grown across the entire world. That is tourism for us. That is an opportunity for us. Again, looking at Ghana Beyond Aid, I also want to look at the institutions that are currently here and well positioned to use their resources as a significant means to help transform this industry. And I want to start with the universities here. In cannabis production, in my little experience that I've had over the years, I have met people from the medical sector, from the pharmaceuticals. I've met people from the legal side. I've met people from the chemical engineering side when it comes to testing and extraction. And you actually realize that there are so many opportunities lined up in the entire seed sale. So if you look at the universities today in Ghana, they are well positioned, they are well established to help grow the resources that are needed, the human resources that are needed in order to make Ghana a premier when it comes to cannabis production. For example, if you look at KNUST, they have the College of Agriculture, they have chemical engineering, where they have all the HPLC machines that can do the chromatography and the testing and the likes, and even possibly CO2 extraction, which at the end of the day provides the safest and the cleanest oils when it comes to cannabis oil extraction. It even makes it easier for us to look at full spectrum or multi-spectrum oils, or at the end of the day, strictly CBD oils. All these resources exist today for this industry to actually become bigger than what it looks like right now. With very little effort, and with full collaboration from the government, with the other technical institutions that are there, and the private sector, and the religious bodies, and the legislative, we can grow this business within the shortest possible time to grant us the returns that we expect to yield as an economy. If I'm a student and I finish university with a chemical engineering background, I can work as an extractor. With my skills, I should be able to separate cannabinoids from each other. I should be able to separate cannabidiol from cannabinol or cannabigyrol. I should be able to separate all these cannabinoids from each other. And if I am able to do this, that simply tells me that I am in a position to sell various individual cannabinoids, or I'm in a position to export individual cannabinoids, whether if it's to companies outside the country or to individual pharmaceutical companies doing drug formulation or testing for whether if it's clinical trials or whatever. And that is an industry that is untapped. But there are countries like Israel, countries like Slovenia, countries like Switzerland and the US, where all these things are happening today. And Ghana has the resources already to do them. We can take a cannabis plant and extract the individual cannabinoids and do research on each and every one of them with very little effort, because we have the resources in our universities. We also have the resources to teach our farmers, because in the universities, they teach the best practices when it comes to sustainable agriculture. They also teach the importance of soil sampling. They also teach the importance of why we need to run COAs in our food tests. And cannabis is consumed literally as a food, whether if we're smoking it, whether if we're using it for tea or edibles. It's the same food test process that we would test a tomato with, that we would test a watermelon with, or a vegetable with. It's the same process that would use to test cannabis to ensure its safety and usage. And all of this is job creation. We could be the first country to have testing labs that actually support other countries in the entire region. Look at that investment. If Nigeria, or if Togo, or if Uganda, or if countries within the African region want the best testing for cannabis, we could be at the focal point, providing rapid results, providing terpene profiles, providing cannabinoid profiles, everything automated. It still doesn't end there. Even in technology, IT, computer science plays a significant role when it comes to cannabis. Because for us to ensure the tracking of seed to sale, there needs to be IT systems put in place for us to know what type of seed and what specific type of strain was given to which farmer in what quantities. What region or what area was this grown? What is the name of the dispensary that purchased from this farmer? What was the amount of harvest that was supplied to this dispensary? So on and so forth. That entire seed to tracking system, there are concepts that are out there which look at providing a blockchain platform that the system that we refer to as the cannabis seed to sale tracking system runs on, which ensures that all transactions within the blockchain are fair and can be tracked, and individuals who actually purchase from dispensaries can remain anonymous. So Ghana Beyond Aid starts for me with policy. If the policies are effective, if the policies are fair, if the policies that the government wants to put in place through legislation, if they collaborate with the private sector, with the farmers, and all the individuals who play a significant role, including the Rastafari, who are essential and deserve an applause for being at the forefront of this war, for being the ones who have taken the hardest hit. All of us coming together to work hand in hand should enable us to create the right measures in place, the right policies in place for a safer passage to usage, for a safer passage to investment. That would help Ghana grow beyond aid, because all the institutions would have been established, all the necessary partnerships would have been made, and the stigmatization gradually being taken away. Those who have been incarcerated would have an opportunity to work in an industry that they probably never thought they would be, getting a chance to have their lives back, getting a chance to live once again and feel part of the economy, or feel part of the system. So just before I bring my presentation to a conclusion, I would want to say that no cannabis program is complete without appropriate remedies for rectifying the harm caused by criminal prosecution of cannabis crimes. Additionally, our vision is one in which the most pressing global issues, gender equality, poverty, ecological sustainability, concentrations of wealth, and the rise of faceless multinationals are addressed through a vehicle of robustness and comprehensively regulated cannabis industries, governed and directed by Ghana and its citizens. It is no exaggeration to say that Ghana is presented with an opportunity to change the world. Thank you very much.
Yes, Ghana has been given an opportunity to change the world. I think the speaker deserves another round of applause. He shares some very interesting points there, that if you look at Ghana, it is adult usage of cannabis that is very popular. However, we have enacted a policy that failed to consider the adult usage of cannabis, because it did not look at the therapeutic use of cannabis in enacting that law. So the speaker recommends that governments have a second look, bearing in mind that the therapeutic or otherwise recreational use of cannabis is very popular here, and as such, we need to position ourselves. He mentioned that the green gold is here, and Ghana has an opportunity to make a change. We'll take some comments from our Zoom platform. Bongo wisely said, "Blessed love to all participants and viewers. Coming from the Caribbean Rastafari Organization, CRO. It's an honor to be part of this forum. Our hands and hearts are with you all the way. Rastafari live and reign. Ja." Yes, so that's from our sister organization, CRO in the Caribbean. Stephen Kono also said, "Epican Jamaica, you big. As South Africa, we seriously note your input." So our brothers from South Africa have noted the input from Ras Demos in Jamaica and will make some recommendations to their government as they also enact policies. We'll have an open forum. We will now invite contributions from our members here and also on Facebook and Zoom. We'll start with our members here. If you have any questions for our speakers, some input, some recommendations to make regarding the conversation, Ghana Beyond Aid, the cannabis factor, the time is now to air those views. So the platform or the floor is open for anybody who has an input. It can be a question or what have you. Those on our Facebook and our YouTube, Zoom platforms are also invited to ask their questions. I think there's one question for Cheryl, Empress Cheryl, on our Zoom platform. And so the Empress will note it and address it. But those of us here would like to find out if any of you has a comment, a suggestion, a question on our input to make. This is the open forum session. Yes, Brother Kali. Enoxena Dogbe. Please, let's welcome you with applause.
Give thanks for the opportunity. My question goes to the second presenter, Ras Demos. He talked about areas that we could venture into, different areas that we could venture into if we want to enter the cannabis industry. And he talked about the making of soil. So I would like him to, if he can give a small elaboration on that, the making of soil as a support base in the cannabis industry.
I hope you have noted that, Ras Demos. We'll take a few more questions, comments, and input, and we'll return to our speakers to address these questions and concerns. Yes, Bobo Selassie has an input. 420. 420.
Greetings in the name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie. Ja Rastafari. Today has been a wonderful and blissful day. As a Rasta youth growing up, mostly in the system, they only criticize Rastafari, or we the youth as Rastafari, for cannabis, and then, but I realize it goes beyond that. So to me, in other countries, they're suggesting what sort of support, or what sort of, when they go into the law, the legality of the whole issue, what is the government putting in place as a special attention to the Rasta community, or is it generally that we're also going to be treated just like normal, regular public after all the like what we've been through, like the criticism, everything? What is it going to be to the government? What special position are we, or portfolio are we going to enjoy as Rastas to at least to take off that kind of shame from us? And secondly, I would like us to address on the legalization of the hemp and cannabis, more like the problems they can solve. Like now when they talk of galamsey, our water bodies are being destroyed. So what hemp does actually, it takes every chemical that is poisonous out of the soil. So on most of this land, if we want to do land reclamation, I like ecological approach, permacultural approach to our lands and rescue the land then from destroy. I think hemp is standing at the best place. So I look like government looking into the destroying of our lands into galamsey. They can put a policy that the companies or the organizations that are going to do the land reclamation must always have if they are going to contract with any mining company, there must be a part that they have to prepare for land reclamation, because destroying our river bodies. And I read yesterday that within some let's say 2030 something going, our food crops will be full of metallic substances that will be very poisonous. So from going forward, I think government have to have a special attention to the cannabis and the hemp industry, so that they can do the land reclamation and also have a special kind of pricing for those people who are going to destroy the land in terms of mining, so that they can have a balance in our helping back the land. Because when the land is destroyed, I don't know how we can survive as human beings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bubu Selassie Doubles as the Volta Regional Chairman of the Rastafari Council, and he made a great input. I believe our speakers, Empress Cheryl, Rasdemos, and Brother Godfred, have noted these questions and will address them. We'll invite the Empress to make her submission. Please, can somebody help her with a live video? Please come here. So somebody should help her with a live video. Yes, please. We'll take a submission from the Empress.
So I wanted to know how the government is dealing with I don't know. I wanted to know how the government is dealing with the issues that we face with legalizing marijuana here in Ghana. I'm from California. I was selected to be a owner of a dispensary in California through a social equity program that the government implemented for the people who were affected by the crack epidemic in South Central. So now I'm here. I want to see how we can connect and make some powerful moves here as a people. So is there anything that someone can tell me? Because I came late. I don't know what is going on.
Thank you very much for the question, the submission. The President of the Rastafari Council will address this question. We are still inviting inputs from the general public here, the Rastafari community, at home and abroad, those on Zoom, those also on Facebook. So let's take this question, submission, or suggestion from the Empress.
Rastafari. First, I want to introduce me. I'm Sister Claudia Ahin. I'm a member of 12th Tribe of Israel. I'm a Rasta, but I'm also a nurse, working for more than 20 years in Switzerland in mental care. And I take a lot of patients which really had to take hard drugs. And I can see that cannabis is a replacement also for a lot of sicknesses. And in the time we are now with our COVID and sickness, what I can tell you from my side, how we fight it in Europe or in Switzerland, it was rather to introduce it as a medicine, not as a drug, but as a medicine. And we have a lot of sick, very, very sick people who take it. They have cancer, some are really on stage that they are dying, and we're helping them to give them a better life quality. That's one thing. Second thing, it is helping you to improve your immune system, which is something which is also helping against the COVID. So we have a lot of medical attachment to push it, that we can say, hey, we are rather into a natural treatment than a chemical treatment. Now there we have one of the biggest problems is that a lot of people who grow ganja put chemical things in it. They let it push it fast. They have against germs, against everything. So this is also something we have to tackle. And India is very strong with neem. We use neem, and in Ghana, neem is like something to throw away, which is not true. Neem is something very good. Pesticide against insects and so on, and together we don't have to only emphasize on cannabis. There is other plants which are strongly to be supported together with the cannabis, especially for our health. Now, this is your question about Rasta, what we have to do with it is my question myself. We can only promote it. We used to make cannabis fair, trade fairs, cannabis fairs in Europe. I know in America they do it, and that was the best way to introduce cannabis, how to grow it, how to have it, how to produce it as medicine. We make powder out of it, and then you can make whatever way of how you give it. Now there is another thing, they make CBD, and they have a lot of different kind of help in the cannabis itself. We all talk about cannabis, but we didn't really analyze it the way like medicine and pharmacists and medicine analyze things. So there are a lot of people on it. With labs, you need your own lab to analyze TBC, THC, THA, and there are hundreds. And Canada is very upfront. I know you are very upfront in California, and Europe is trying to do, and these actually are the demands which we need in this country. If we don't have a place to analyze it and to prove it to the people, hey, this is wrongly cursed as a drug, and that's what is really drug, because tramal is a thing which you know also. It is based on morphine, and people really don't know, and they take it, and that is drug. So we really have to straighten our medical understanding, and this you can only do through teachings of the people, make trade fairs, make this kind of thing. That's why I'm here. I'm sorry, maybe I repeat myself. It's something which somebody said. Sister, me too, I'm late. I apologize for that. But at least I give thanks for these few words, and I hope I could make a little input. Selassie.
Yes, sir. We'll take a submission from Ras Okro, after which we'll go to the Zoom platform to take comments from the Zoom platform. Please, let's welcome Ras Okro with a warm applause. 420. 420.
420. Yes, greetings. I'm Ras Okro. In as much as we're talking about cannabis and it's been a factor, in helping Ghana break through beyond aid. There is this concern. Cannabis has been legalized in Ghana medicinally, but there is this problem still pertaining in the system. Sometimes you still get arrested for possession. And talking of medicinal purpose, herbal medicine, we boil moringa, we boil tea leaves, we boil some other herbal medicine. But if you are found with maybe 3 rolls, maybe for tea, you are still arrested, So that means the medicinal purpose we are talking about here is pharmaceuticals, not herbal medicine. Because herbal medicine, I can harvest moringa and boil it, for tea, which is very medicinal. So this is a concern we should have a look at. In as much as it's legal for medicinal purpose, we should consider herbal medicine, not only pharmaceuticals. Thanks.
420. 420. So we will now go to our Zoom platform to take questions from that platform. Some of our members have raised their hands. Augustine Hippolyte, please introduce yourself briefly. Tell us where you are making your statement from, and then go ahead. Thank you.
420.
Greetings in the name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile. I want to give thanks to all the work that I'm doing over in Ghana. I'd love to see how this program has progressed. You know, give thanks to the presenters, Sister Cheryl, Bonga Dimak. You know, I see that everyone has been willing and ready to participate. The time is now. Let's continue lighting the fires across the continent and across the region. You know, one perfect love.
Yes, brother. My name is Stephen.
Speak up a little bit. Thank you.
I'll just say that the last speaker, William Reynolds, that's my business partner.
Brother Stephen, you have the floor now.
Yeah, greetings. My name is Ras Stephen Tabelukuno from the Marijuana Board of South Africa. We are glad to be hosted by Ghana. From us in South Africa, it has always been our goal that yes, we must partner with countries such as Ghana. Most importantly, because it's one of the 100% organic country. So, South Africa will also want to learn from your lights in as far as organic farming is concerned. To other global partners and the speakers who have spoken, we have taken into cognizance the intelligence that you have shared, and surely we shall share and spread it in South Africa, because we are because of your intelligence, you are because of our intelligence. What I also wanted to request was to say, let us continue to forge African unity, Africa for Africans, those at home and those abroad. Let us look at this challenge of economics, capital injection. It is those that are given opportunities that must aid those who never got those opportunities, so that we speed up the social exchange program. We are ready as a country to partner with you, Ghana. We are ready as a country to partner with all your stakeholders. Big up to the Rastafari Council of Ghana and the chamber that has also been here to activate and to be with you. It is a great example. We hope even in our country, the chambers will start to realize that there's a great green gold economy, and it cannot happen as long as the Rastafarians, the traditional healers and traditional leaders are still harassed and arrested. We need social justice. I give thanks.
Give thanks for your submission. Are there any more submissions so that we can go to our speakers to address the questions raised? Yes, we'll entreat ones who are speaking to mute their microphones so as to not send feedback. Those of us joining us online and on the Zoom platforms, please, if you come in to speak, do well to reduce the volume of your phone or laptop so as not to give us any wrong feedback. Is there anyone who would like to make a submission on the Zoom, from the Zoom platform? If not, we'll take our closing remarks from our speakers. Empress Cheryl, please, there are some questions that were posed to you, directly to you, and others that you may also have the knowledge that you want to touch on. So please respond to these questions, and afterwards you give us your closing remarks. Thank you. So,
yeah, so again, I want to give thanks for the opportunity to speak in this forum. I enjoyed hearing from my fellow co-panelists, and I look forward to my next visit to Ghana to be with my people. With that said, it's exciting. It's an exciting time to watch Ghana develop a legal cannabis industry. My emphasis today was not as much on the commercial side, but really about sacramental use, and that it's a given right. It's a right that should be demanded, and it's all about health and wellness, and using the sacrament for the glorification of life and glorification of the liberty and glorification of His Imperial Majesty and His legacy. So, with that said, when you look at the commercial side, there are opportunities. There are so many opportunities for employment, for ownership and multi-generational wealth. It is something that is necessary in response to the healthcare crisis that we're facing all around the world. It's definitely a response directly to the need for criminal justice reform. I'm sure you are all aware of the state of racial tensions in the United States and our unjust criminal justice system. And with legalization is helping with that. Legalization is keeping, some of our young men out of prison unnecessarily. When you have legalizations, things that would stand in the way from a young person getting accepted at a university and getting scholarships and grants, it's no longer a criminal offense on their record. When you have legalization, you don't see where the fathers are taken from our homes, and then the entire value system is destroyed for the concept of family. You don't have young children having to live with other family members or non-family members and being in situations of abuse because their parents are incarcerated for a plant. So there's so many levels, there's so many degrees of how this era of prohibition has negatively impacted our communities, and it's time for reform. It's as I mentioned when I spoke, it's time for social justice, and the emphasis being on justice, which I saw Ross Bongo in the comments made note of reparations and reparatory justice. It's time, it's past time. And this type of forum is how we get started, because we can look at each other and see like minds and understand that you're not doing this alone. We're going to go arm in arm, and we're going to show the way, and everybody benefits. It's not an opposition thing. It's really an enlightenment and education, informative situation where you help the government understand that all the money that you are spending on prohibition and incarceration, you've destroyed our families. You've destroyed our families, and there's no result. There's no positive result. So let's go ahead and help them along the way to have responsible, progressive laws which allow for a legal industry. When I started speaking with you all, I talked about the fact that, reggae music has spread around the world and spread Rastafari around the world. And ganja has the same attributes. Ganja spreads the tenets of Rastafari and love and one love and peace between brethren around the world. And just like reggae music had to go through the Babylon system of Babylon recording studios, Babylon record shops, that's the same pathway initially for ganja right now, going through the Babylon system of the creation of a legal cannabis market. But we know, while we see people enjoying the fruits and the financial gain, we know that we can't stop there. and we have to push forward for beyond the commercialization into the sacramental, where God-given rights can be recognized, United Nations rights can be recognized in every country, so we can travel if we want to and contribute across the entire African continent as we see fit, as people of Africa, people of the diaspora. We want to come back. We want to contribute. We want to be one body, one people. But we have to make sure these laws are deconstructed so that everybody can feel safe and feel like they are not sacrificing their freedom in order to finally be where they can call home and contribute and give back and be one. So that's the journey that we're on. That's the trot that we're on, is going through the framework of a legal cannabis industry and pushing forward to enjoying God-given rights and being able to contribute and grow and build and, return to Zion. Everyone should have Zion-like experiences, because we're ordained to have Zion-like experiences. We were put on this earth to contribute and share within each other as a community, and not be separated and fighting and in cages. So it's a higher level thing. Yes, I am an attorney. I work directly on laws and legalization. But in my own conscience, I can't stop the conversation there with, the technicalities of how you set up a legal market. In my conscience, I know that why I was placed here is to work with our communities and make sure that we do have equity, that we do have a value-based community where we can restore what has been lost as far as how we behave one with another, how we move forward in unity, and how we focus on building instead of destruction. And that's why I'm here, and I look forward to returning to Ghana this summer and contributing and working with everyone. And I've learned today, and I'm looking forward to more fellowship, more life, more freedom.
Yes, we give thanks to Empress Cheryl for her response to some of the questions raised and the clarification she gave. I'm sure there will be an opportunity where she can address some of the critical things or issues that we have raised in a more advanced conversation. We'll go to our next speaker to answer some of the questions that has popped up and also to give his closing remarks. But before we do that, we'll share one question from the audience. Michael Kluger is asking, please, does smoking of weed affect the ability to think well? And if one wants to quit using cannabis, will it affect the psychology of the person? I trust Rasdimos will touch on that. Michael Kluger again is asking, how do I learn to grow cannabis at my backyard? We'll now invite Rasdimos to answer some of these questions and also to give us his closing remarks. Cannabis education, 420.
Yes, greetings once again. I give thanks. So let me start off by addressing the question about the soil propagation. So I want to start by saying that what we're looking at when we overall in general, us as a people, we're looking to be more self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency is really where we're trying to go. What we mean is that we are creating for our own. We have our own industries, our own infrastructure, enough to support us as a nation or as a community and have access to share or for export, when we look on how we're trying to position ourselves, all of these efforts are basically surrounding the concept of self-sufficiency. Now, the way the world is set up today, in order for us to gain the level of self-sufficiency that we need, we have to look at our intellectual property, the things that we have that are indigenous to us, that we can use and bring to the world from a branding perspective, meaning that it is owned and it is developed and it is presented by you. Okay? So we're looking at concepts of your intellectual property. What do you have as a country that you can keep to yourself and export? Look at it. Look at Ghana. Look at Jamaica. Huh? You go into the supermarket, there are tons of canned foods in there, all kind of stuff that you can grow locally. But yet still, we can afford to import it from somewhere else, and someone can sell it in a store and still make a profit. All of these things that we can grow for ourselves. So we're trying to change the way that we're thinking. We're trying to change the way that we've been living for a long time to become more self-sufficient. So in saying that, when it comes on to soil, okay, in growing a cannabis plant, it needs certain things, chemical components, we call it, right? But really it's a breakdown of nutrient. Your nitrogen, potassium, calcium, just to name a few, are some of the major things that the cannabis plants need to grow a very healthy plant. So what you can look at is how do you create soil, because you have organic soil there, untampered for many, many years, that can be tested and proven that it is organic and has no chemical component to it. How do you create an organic soil that has these different components in it? There are coconut trees all around. There is a thing that we have in the industry, you call it a cocoa or cocoa pellets. Yes, you can use the trash from the coconut and add it to your soil mixes, and it really enhances the airability or the lightness of the soil that enables the plant to grow much better. Yes, you have different herbs that you can use in your traditional ways of. I remember I've been to Ghana about 3 times, and I've always very, very interested in the herbology of Ghana. Just like Jamaica, you have literally every single herb there for the goodness and the health of mankind. Henceforth, the plant, they operate the same way. It's just a matter of understanding how plants intake nutrient. So it's a little bit of reading, but it's not rocket science. It's actually, this is knowledge that is already embedded in you that just needs to be awakened. You know, all of these things are in us naturally, indigenously, passed down through our ancestors through the plant. And a lot of times we need to realize that it is with our association with plant life, the herbs that we drink, the meditation that we take from the plant that allows us for communication with our ancestors, because that is where the DNA information is. Believe it or not, plant life is way more intelligent than we give it the props, you know? So you can use your indigenous herbs to add to soil to make some really, really good proprietary blend soil that any planter in the world would love to try. You have neem, as the sister mentioned, very good thing. Most of us who grow cannabis anywhere in the world, we need neem oil to spray. It is a part of our, we call our spray protocol, which we spray natural things on the plant to keep off all of the insects and all of the things that love the plant more than we do. You know that the reason why the plant pushes out THC is actually its defense mechanism. The plant is so loved by even nature itself that she pushes out this THC that we have as medicine. It's her defense mechanism so that when the insects come and take a bite, they get stunted and they feel nice and they go off thinking about something jolly in the world, but they don't eat down the whole plant. So it just goes to show you the simplicity of things in life, you know? Yet still, these cannabinoids that this plant is pushing out is the healing of the nation, it's the medicinal. And I want to state that one of the most important things of this plant is associating with it on the level that it gives you the opportunity to think and to be in a way that you're closer to yourself, closer to your being, closer to your environment, because it's really about your relationships. That's where your wealth lies. So back to the propagation of soil. Yes, there are many different things that you can do to make yourself a really, really very, very good intellectual property soil of Ghana. Can you imagine Ghana shipping soil all over the world, people growing their cannabis plant and saying, oh, I got this great product because of this beautiful soil and all of these proprietary blends with these herbs, your Kenkeliba, your rat, your gear. You'll be surprised to know how much things you have that are right there on the land. I believe our brother had mentioned in the question about cannabis affecting you in different ways. Yes, it is true. It does have a psychological and psychoactive effect. It's not the same for everyone. So not everyone will need or is very well off associating with the plant on the THC perspective. What I would say is that drink the tea. If it is that you want to wine off of the smoking, you can drink the tea and dose it much less, so it's a lot weaker for you. There are different herbs that you can take as well that will help with purifying your system. And really, the truth of the matter is the cannabis plant is such an intelligent plant that it really navigates its space through one's experience. So sometimes the thing that is bringing to the forefront is the thing that we fear the most of facing. And a lot of times it's just the reality of self. It's also another thing too, to be able to realize that the chemical reaction that you're having is not something that you're comfortable with. And so it is okay not to interact with the plant on that level. As a matter of fact, I find that for people who have gained anxiety and these different reactions from the THC, that the CBD really helps with that a lot, because the CBD part of the plant helps to calm your body down, helps to calm the mind. It connects to the part of your endocannabinoid system that deals with stress, sleeplessness, anxiety, and these things. Because remember, we're all trying to basically be in a state of balance. And that's what the plant really does. It's so intelligent that it'll come into your system and say, okay, what is unbalanced? And try to find that perfect state of balance for us to live that equilibrium lifestyle, that we're all trying to get to that state of living a very healthy lifestyle on an everyday basis. So in terms of the intellectual property, we have to look on that as defending the things that have been raided from us before. Here in Jamaica, it was bauxite, it was banana, it's coffee, and now we have an opportunity with the cannabis to really help that it will work for us, not just for the exportation for those who can reap the benefit of that, but for us to gain proper intellectual property from the perspective of putting out a product that is branded by you, made by you, yes, and controlled by you, right? This is one of the ways that we can start to see economical growth, economical independence, and just an overall transitional way of how we've been living, So look at all the herbs that you have here. Look at all of the things that you have there, your soil, and don't be afraid. I find a lot of times that us as Black people, but not because you're Black does not mean that you can do things. You don't have to keep on looking to the Europe or these other places in terms of having something authenticated. We can authenticate things for ourselves, but we have to have the right avenue to bring it to the world, which is proper testing, proof of what it is that you're speaking of, and the legislation to back you with what you're pushing forward, So don't be afraid to read. Don't be afraid to take the chance to make something. You're all scientists. We're all engineers. It is embedded in us, So don't be afraid. And don't be afraid even to ask questions. No question is a stupid question. Yeah? So I would say when you really look on how you want to say align yourself, let us think about it from an intellectual property. What do we have? What is the greatness of what we have here that we can use that the world needs. And if you think about it, really, the world is looking for wellness. They're looking for health. The brother mentioned tourism, and that's a very, very good point. Just like here in Jamaica, people want to associate with a feeling of nature. And in some places, it's just really, really hard to make that connection because the resonance does not allow for it. But in a place where you have that natural beauty, you have everything, the essence of life. How many beaches are there that are beautiful that we didn't realize was beautiful until someone else came and cleaned it up? And then when they came and cleaned it up and did something with it, or someone came and did something that we could have done? No. It is time for us to start looking at what we have. The importance of us as African people. We can do the things that need to be done. We have the intellectual property. We have the intelligence, the know-how, and the most beautiful thing. We've been blessed by the mighty with these things naturally. We have to start to harness and change the way that we're thinking, to look inside, to go forward, as opposed to looking outside to come in. The things that we want from the outside world is information in terms of our technology, testing devices, equipment, machinery, yes, that we can bring into the country to start to make that whole process of merchandising alive. Merchandising, making something from a finished product to many other different products. As I said, even the neem oil is something that we all use. Every single person who grows plant that have any insects as a problem, neem is one of the greatest things that you can use. It's one of the best things you can even use as an individual. It's one of the best things you can put in your body. It's extremely bitter, but it's one of the best things. And you know what them said? The bitter is a healing every time, you know? So we give thanks for the ancestry and we give thanks for the light of Rastafari. I believe I touched on the 2 questions that I record. If I'm missing anything, I apologize. But in my closing remarks, I just want to say we're on the right path. You know, we're on the right path, and it's just really about us having these conversations more consistently. You know, I believe that I've seen in the past that we have slight challenges with just being consistent in following up of things. We have great meetings, and after the meetings, a lot of times we don't have a very good follow-up. What I will have to tell you about this particular movement is that it needs constant attention if you're going to actually push it forward. You know, it can't just be one meeting and it was great. You have to make a follow-up plan. Consistency is the key to life. You show me consistency, I'll show you something in life. Okay? So let us keep the fire burning for the ancestors and for the light of Rastafari. We're upon the right path. Haile Selassie the first.
And I just wanted to.
420.
Cannabis education.
420.
Cannabis education.
Yeah, so does smoking weed affect the ability to think, well, how can I grow in my backyard? We will now take submission from Godfred Abuaje, who will also address some of the few questions asked and will add his closing remarks. Please, let's welcome him with applause. 420.
I think Empress was saying something, so I would suggest that we allow her to finish. She wanted to add something to how do you call it?
Thank you so much, King. Thank you, King. I appreciate that. I just want to add one thing on the marijuana psychosis question. So there have been a number of studies on marijuana psychosis, and it's a fallacy. What it turns upon based on the studies is a predisposition to mental health issues. So individuals who have a predisposition genetically to psychological issues, it is magnified with the use of with cannabis. So it's not the plant, it's the person and their genetic makeup, whether they're predisposed to a schizophrenia or some other ailment. But when you have people with, anxiety issues, cannabis is something. I heard Dr. Uma Danalaban speak once, and she said, cannabis makes you remember and cannabis makes you forget. So cannabis makes you forget traumatic experiences, and it helps you if you have cognitive disorders, Alzheimer's and autism and other things like that. It helps you remember. So it's one of those things, just like Rastima said, where it responds so well with our body. The receptors are in line with the plant that it can help you remember or help you to forget, depending on what's going on cognitively in your body and what traumas you have experienced. So someone with schizophrenia, a marijuana or let's say a higher THC plant wouldn't be the best experience for them because they're predisposed to it. But with a CBD, we can also see where they'll get relief. And my last point is, one thing we didn't talk about is the addiction recovery aspects of the cannabis plant. So opioid addiction, we have a really amazing Jamaican scientist who works in New York at Mount Sinai Research Center. And she's done research with human models as far as mice, et cetera. And she's shown that cannabis alleviates the addictive response. And we have tremendous amount of anecdotals and clinical studies showing that cannabis can be used to help with addiction. Therefore, just like I mentioned, Dr. Uma Dhanalaban, another thing she says is cannabis is not a gateway drug. Cannabis is an exit drug. Cannabis helps people get over their opioid addictions and other addictions to drugs and have them live normal, well-balanced lives. So I thank you again, King, for giving me that opportunity to speak and finish my thought. I give thanks for you.
Yes, so we'll go back to take closing remarks from Godfred Abuaje of CBD International and Advocacy Committee of RCG. Yes, sir. 420. Yes, we are encouraging. Godfrey, please unmute your microphone.
Oh.
And start. Please go over again.
Yeah, so I was saying that Empress Cheryl and Ras Demos have probably answered all the questions. So I assume there's no question for me at this point. So all I want to simply add up to what my dear fellow co-host said is that at the end of the day, Ghana and Africa as a whole need to be in a better position to fully enlighten our governments, our research institutions, the kingsmen and the chieftaincies. All the people in the highest positions need to be educated and need to be enlightened. And if anybody's going to do that, it's going to be us. And that's why there needs to be a continuous movement and advocacy to create this enlightenment. At the end of the day, cannabis is supposed to bring people together. It's supposed to be a facilitation to heal the nation. It's supposed to create opportunities and allow investments to come, not just from outside but from within. Our own local investors should be willing to invest in an industry that is promising, this cannabis industry that is promising. I personally have said over and over again that I see Ghana becoming the star of Africa when it comes to cannabis legislation and cannabis growth. So I hope that at the end of this event, we continue to promote this advocacy. We continue to push for this continuous activity and keep the fire burning. Thank you very much.
We thank our speakers for their powerful presentation. Our viewers at home and abroad, we thank you for still joining us. We'll take a closing remark from the chairman of the Advocacy Committee of the Rastafari Council of Ghana, Kex Pongo. Ja.
We give thanks. We give thanks for all who took part in this historical event. We have seen that up till now, the president of Ghana has not signed the narcotic bill into an act, or narcotic act. He didn't put his signature to it. And also the level of tetrahydrocannabinol, which is allowed, or which the law has permitted, is too low for economic reasons. We also want to tell the media and the general public that it is time for you to read and study about cannabis, so that we shall all be well informed instead of people just still using their opinions. Finally, Ghanaians, we shouldn't miss this opportunity, this great opportunity which will not last. We shouldn't miss it. Let's also make some money out of this thing before we start importing products from countries that have legalized marijuana. Give thanks. 420. Before we take the closing statement from the Rastafari Council of Ghana President, we would like to remind you all that to commemorate the day, music is a vehicle that sends message. It transports or sends a Rastafari message. To commemorate the day, the 420 day, Kojo Kombolo has released an EP, which we encourage you all to stream it on your audio mark, Kojo Kombolo. Just check audio mark, Kojo Kombolo, and stream this song. Enjoy with your friends as we commemorate or we mark this special 420 day. We hereby invite, well, it's titled Incoming Call. Yes, Incoming Call. It discusses the economics of cannabis, or some of the economic activities that goes on in the ghetto as it relates to cannabis. So we encourage you all to check it out, Kojo Kombolo on your audio mark. We hereby invite the President, Ahuma Bosco Kanse, to give us his closing address. Please, let's welcome him with a thunderous applause. 420.
Cannabis education. So once again, thank you for participating in today's program. It's been really insightful and educative. I'm looking forward to the Advocacy Commission instituting monthly interactions like this, because you could tell from the questions and contributions that people want to know more. And so I'll encourage the Advocacy Commission to embark on a monthly 2-hour session where on every last Saturday of the month for 2 hours, they'll engage with these resource persons and the many more other resource persons who are available. The conference report will be presented to the Parliamentary Select Committee on Interior and Defense. A copy will also be presented to the Minister of Interior, because he has oversight responsibility for the Narcotics Commission. We'll also present a copy of the report to the Narcotics Commission, and finally to the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture. As some of the speakers said, cannabis tourism is big. In Netherlands right now, there are people who just fly to Holland for a weekend, smoke some herb, and go back to their homes. Everybody knows that people fly to Jamaica to smoke up the cannabis there. So if the Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture says he wants to quadruple earnings from tourism in Ghana over the next 2 years, this is an avenue he can consider. I'll encourage everybody to take time to watch the video, which will be on rastafaricouncil.org website. It will also be available on our Facebook, so that the many nuggets of wisdom that were shared, you can take your time and utilize it. Ras Dumas said that for them in Jamaica, it was a 5-year journey. I'm also hoping that from 2020 to 2025, we will be able to see the legalization of cannabis in Ghana, so that we as a nation can move beyond aid and then access the benefits, the numerous jobs that can be created from cultivation through processing to distribution and consumption. The last thing I'd like to say is that the Rastafari Council of Ghana is not in a competition with anybody in the work of cannabis advocacy. What we need is alliances to complement each other's efforts and not competition. The benefits of the green gold economy are immense, and no single individual or organization can do the work or enjoy the benefits. On that note, I want to thank you all for your time in today's conference. The 3rd National Cannabis Conference has been hugely successful, and we hereby declare it closed. Thank you very much.
Please, we invite all participants for a group photo. We thank all our audience at home and abroad. Let's continue the conversation. The Cannabis or the Advocacy Committee has been given a monthly challenge. So we'll take it up and expect us or a link online to participate in our monthly cannabis conversation. Thank you all. Please, can we enjoy the 420 EP incoming call? Can we scan to that? Please, we are inviting you all for a group photo. My lords and empresses. Yeah, we say happy and strong to Ni Impese Kungu, who celebrates 420 as his birthday. The chief Ni Impese Kungu of the Royal Impese family. We extend a happy birthday, happy and strong, a happy 420, happy everything good, everything natural, everything fireworks. Rastafari, please join us for a group photo. Ana yebet mi abamu